Sure. Yeah.
We used to sit by each other every meeting. It's been a long time.
Oh, it has.
And this looks different.
It
It
does.
took me a hot second. I think it was that one.
That one. Thank you. Ah, good. Thank you. Punch and budget.
I clicked all of them, so you're okay.
Very okay. I can make that work.
Did he? That's nice. If you want, better than nothing, Keith, but you don't have to.
Okay. Well, we won't have video today, but we'll get started. Is that okay? Okay, perfect. All right. Welcome to the March 21st, 2024 meeting of the Downtown Design Review Committee. My name is Justin Brandon. I am chair of the committee. When called on, applicants and speakers will come to the front podium to speak. Only one person at a time should come to the podium. Do not approach the podium until vacated by a previous speaker. Speak into the microphone, please, and identify yourself and provide your address for the record when you begin speaking. Please limit your, address your comments, questions, and testimony to the committee, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. It is unnecessary to repeat testimony previously given by others. Citizens may address the committee on agenda items by responding to the chair's call for speakers during discussion on each item and signing the speaker's log on the podium. All comments must be relevant to the item. The chair or presiding officer may, in his or her discretion, prohibit a person from addressing the committee and or remove that person from council chambers if that person commits any disorderly or disruptive behavior. Please see the agenda for more information about these requirements. If you're parked in the Sheridan Walker parking garage, north of John Rex Elementary School, or in the Arts District parking garage south of City Hall, staff can provide a parking validation ticket for you. The agenda and documents are located at https://okc.primegov.com/public/portal. You would then select the Downtown Design Review Committee meeting and then click on the agenda item, and the relevant documents will come up below the item. Keith, will you please call roll?
Brandon.
Present.
Copeland.
Present.
Jones.
Present.
Schmid.
Present.
We have quorum.
All right, we have quorum. Okay. Item number 2, approval of minutes. Anyone have any questions about the minutes? If so, anyone like to make a motion?
Move to approve.
Okay.
Copeland,
Jones?
second.
Jones, Copeland. Okay. Motion passes.
And we need to get a voice vote from Mariana. Well, is that a yes from Mariana on the minutes? Yes.
Okay. Item number 3, cases withdrawn. There are none. Item number 4, continuous requests. There are none. Item number 5, consent docket. There are none. Item number 6, cases for individual consideration. First, we have DTCA-24-00005 at 700 North Broadway Avenue. Laura?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So this is located at Broadway Northwest 6th. On the northeast corner. And some of you might remember there used to be a parking lot there a few years ago. And they came through for a project. They were going to build a new building that was going to have condos in it, and the first level was going to be a parking garage for the tenants of the building. They got it approved. They actually got a building permit approved, and they tore out the parking lot, and then the project stalled, and they never built it. So it has looked like this for several years now. It originally had a curb cut on Broadway. And currently, the city is working on a Broadway streetscape project, and the curb cut on Broadway is going away. For that area, it was way too close to the corner. So the only access they will have will be from the alley, and it had an access from the alley before when the parking lot was there. And so I'm just going to continue on down. You know, both streets are obviously very busy streets in both directions. I just had to catch one showing that the streetcar is right next to the site. And that is actually showing where the curb cut was on Broadway. That will be going away. As part of the Broadway streetscape project, they will actually be redoing the sidewalks as well. So that is not part of the CA that you're looking at today. And we can see that we have some new buildings that have gone before downtown that, in one case, this one is finished and we have tenants in it. And then in another case, you can see there, kind of in the center, is a new building that's going up where the downtown Y was before the bombing. That this body approved last year, I believe it was, and it's gone up really fast. It was faster than I thought it would go up. And that is the building that is adjacent to the parking lot, that has the same ownership, and the parking lot will be used by that building. So I will go back to, we'll just let it land right there. This is before you because of the guideline against parking lots on corners. The intent is we want buildings on corners, parking lots mid-block if we have surface parking lots. We have had several that have come before you, and I list all of those, and the list keeps getting longer, and I just keep adding to it every time I do a staff report. The interesting thing this time, though, is when I started updating these, one of those locations, the one I mentioned because we have a building going up just around the corner, you all had approved a parking lot there when they came in for the parking garage, and they put a surface parking lot on the west side of it, knowing they were going to build a building. Well, now the parking lot's gone and they're building a building. So we're starting to see some of these parking lots that you've approved get replaced by buildings, and that is the intent. It might not be as quick as that one was. It might be 5 or 10 years down the road, but eventually we'll end up with buildings on most of these locations. So I indicate that we have a lot of parking lots in this vicinity that are on corners, and I kind of describe their locations in the staff report. We still believe that prominent street corners like this one should be reserved for buildings. However, if you put a parking lot on it for a few years, that does not keep someone from being able to come through, get approval for a building, and put a building up on it. And we're kind of looking at this almost as an interim use until such time as something else might come along. It could be here for 10 years or more. It could be here for 2 or 3, as the case of the other one over on Robinson. In this case, it seems that reconstructing a parking lot, because I mentioned one was there before, on this site would service the needs of the adjacent building that has the same owner. Additionally, reconstructing this parking lot would not impede the construction of a future building at this location. And staff is recommending approval of this. The tenant of the adjacent building is the Photographic Society of America. They're currently renovating the building. It previously had one of the branches of the military was in there on one side, and the other side was OK Runner. It was a retail use. So this change of ownership is fairly new. The renovation is new. So the applicant and someone representing the owner is here if you have questions, or if you have questions for me.
Any questions for staff? And then if the applicant wants to come up and speak to this, any? He indicated he's here to answer questions. Okay, perfect. Any questions for the applicant?
I do. So since this is a pretty prominent corner, I kind of look at it as part of the gateway to downtown. People are passing this as they're leaving downtown, going northbound, or if they're going to downtown, coming southbound, and along Broadway. The plans I'm looking at don't have any trees. There is trees. The planes are loading really, really, really slow too.
The PDFs are loading fairly slowly on.
Yeah, I would like to see that. Yes, please. They're slowly coming. Okay, there's 2 trees. They are required? Yeah. I was gonna ask, what are the landscaping requirements for this corner? And then I feel like because of its location, we should go all out, basically. Let me see.
Oh, thank you.
The landscaping requirements for parking lot require every parking space be within 75 foot of a tree.
Yep.
Okay, so they meet that. There is another requirement in there, when a parking lot is adjacent to a sidewalk, and they have several options. They could have a 3-foot landscaped area, they could have a berm, they could have a fence. They meet that as well. They did make some changes in the parking lot layout that I'll mention to you, which I think benefits because we ended up with more green area. So originally their back-end turnaround area on the west was very large and very deep. And I said, well, we really don't need it that big. Someone's going to park there. And we don't want people to park there, so let's cut that down and get some more green space. And they did that, and I do appreciate it. So
Can I,
The backflow and meter are all along Broadway, though, in front of the landscaping.
and so can you identify yourself, Ryan?
my name is Ryan Smith. I'm with SRB, representing the client. We do have trees kind of like placed along the south side there. I would also point out that PSA, Photographic Society of America, is interested in, and I think they're currently pursuing, a mural that they want to put on the side of their building. This is important to their business. And so they're interested in not having a lot of trees like blocking that mural from the south. And so we, within, our requirements, we tried to put, as many trees as possible without without blocking that mural that they're planning to do.
Okay.
I had asked if we could add one,
Yeah.
and then there was a concern over blocking a proposed future mural, which has not been submitted to us yet.
Okay. If it's not submitted, this might be all theoretical, but is the mural going to cover the whole, like, navy side wall? Or what's the thought there for the size?
I don't know if that's been, has that been
The
applied
goal
for?
is the whole side.
You'll need to come up to the microphone.
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
not involved in the mural.
Yeah, and if you could
Oh,
identify
you're okay.
yourself
Yeah.
for the record, thank you.
The side of the building, there's a short, and I'm not engineer person.
You're okay.
Could you
corrugated-
identify yourself, please, for the
Oh,
record?
sorry. There's about a 3-foot corrugated metal
Yeah.
on the side of the building that was put there, I'm understanding, because of, I can't remember the term, encroachment? Yeah, encroachment. And then the whole rest of it's brick, and the whole rest of the side, we intend to be a mural.
Okay.
Could you tell them what your name is?
Oh, I'm sorry, my name is Twyla Berlin.
Thank you.
I am the manager of PSA Headquarter Office. Our goal is to improve the area, and we have great hopes that we can become an integral part of the arts community in the downtown area, and this is why we purchased this area.
Yeah, it's a great area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a photo you could pull up of the side of that building again?
Hang on a minute. I'll just need to get back to my PowerPoint when,
Sorry, I'm having to go
thanks.
back.
Oh, you're good. Whoops.
While she's pulling that up, could I emphasize one additional thing? The removal of this driveway at the corner there on Broadway is contingent on this being accepted. This is actually a pretty big deal for Public Works. They do not want the driveway that close to the intersection. However, they're not willing to remove drives from that are existing if the owner is not willing to do that. PSA has offered to do that, as well as not have any access off 6th Street either. I think this is a huge benefit. I'm also the designer for the Broadway streetscape enhancement. So this is a big component of that project as well.
So I believe the material she was referring to in this picture is the white that's at the western corner of the building. The building had previously been painted, which means painting a mural on it would not create an issue with any guideline that we have.
Thoughts?
I do so lean towards the tree being on that corner. I think visibility of the mural would be just fine. And if that's a problem, the bald cypress that is suggested is a pretty thick foliage tree. Like you can't really see through a bald cypress. But there are plenty of other trees out there, tree choices that do have a bit more transparency. But I also don't know what streetscape trees are going in with the Broadway project.
So my comment on that is, for the most part, there's no additional street trees
There's no street-
being installed, but because the issue they've run into is they've run out of room on the streetscape project to be able to accommodate the area needed for street trees because of sidewalk needs and parking needs.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
And so he definitely would know about that too, from that project.
The interests of the district were to limit, they did not want a tree-lined street. And so that played into the design of the streetscape on Broadway. So we are not planning any additional trees. We are leaving existing healthy trees, which I think we'll end up removing 1 or 2 trees, but it's pretty minimal. But trees was not something they wanted to focus money on that project.
Okay. Do y'all have any other thoughts on this?
Yeah, if you're just looking down Broadway itself, it doesn't seem like kind of just what he was alluding to is that this doesn't seem like the treescape is just more of a pedestrian-friendly walking along Broadway.
I will say this has been an eyesore for our community for 6 years now.
And remind me, you said that we're closing that curb cut off of Broadway?
Right. And the other thing I noticed, because this is the first time since my foot surgery that I was actually out taking pictures, and all of the sidewalks adjacent to this side are sloped, and I couldn't walk on them. I was having to walk out in the street. So I'm very excited for this project to come in because we're actually going to get accessible sidewalks put in. That is part of the streetscape project, not the CA that you're considering. But you can see, as the chair said, you can see where the curb cut was, and that was utilized previously for the parking lot. And there was also going to be a curb cut for that building, if I'm not mistaken. That was proposed, I think.
I have a question. Do you have any plans for fixtures for light around the parking?
There are no plans for lighting at this site. There is street lighting on Broadway, no lighting on 6th Street.
Will this be private or public parking?
Private.
Any other thoughts, comments?
Laura, you've got a photo from the east looking straight west up 6th Street.
Hang on a minute, where did I go? Looking straight west.
Keep going.
No,
One more.
that's
That one.
Okay.
So I think we're going or discussing is that public art is important and visibility of public art. If you're going to invest in the neighborhood, it's important that you get a return on that investment and that community engagement. But I think what we're also saying is pedestrian experience on streets is important. And if Broadway is not prioritizing street trees because of a retail corridor and they want to make sure they have maximum visibility into their storefronts and wide sidewalks for pedestrians, there's already been established the precedent on 6th on the south side of Heartland where they said street trees are important to help the pedestrian experience. 6th Street is highly trafficked from people moving east and west from the health center back towards the middle of downtown. And so I would challenge to say that cypress that's planted in the northeast corner of the parking lot isn't doing anything for the general public other than scoring the points and checking the box. And I would challenge to say a more pedestrian-friendly experience would be 3 or 4 street trees in that planting zone on the south side, and you'll still see plenty of that mural from Broadway, which is where you're really trying to engage the community and the people walking back and forth. So I would say, while it hits the technical requirements of the code, it doesn't hit the intent of the code, which is making people using the streets of Oklahoma City's lives better. And so I would rather see street trees on 6th than where they're currently shown.
I would agree with that.
If we're going to allow
Yeah.
a parking lot as a temporary use
Yeah.
in our most important retail corridor in Oklahoma City.
So currently they are showing 2 trees on the north side, the northwest, northeast corner. So what you're suggesting is take those 2 trees and put it on the southwest and southeast corner of the parking lot?
At a minimum, at a minimum.
Agree. At a minimum, I would say that would be, I would also approve that better. I think they'd have more visibility and more pedestrian-friendly use. And honestly, more beautification for this area instead of tucked against the wall.
Right, and recognizing that there are street trees across for the Heartland building, at that time, I was still telling people that I need street trees from you, and, here's what that guideline was.
Yeah.
That was all approved prior to the new idea, which is we're not going for this tree-lined street trees on Broadway. But the ones that are there and are healthy, which obviously, hopefully theirs are because they're new, will stay.
Yeah.
And those are located in the right-of-way and not on private property.
Yeah, and their tree spacing is probably, looking at this picture, 20, 30 feet apart, maybe 40. It's hard to tell exactly from this angle, but they're a lot tighter spacing as well. Oh yeah, that's a parking space that's 20 feet, 22 feet wide. So I guess I think it would be appropriate to add more trees as well along that 6th Street edge to complement your neighbor across the street.
So I can't, since I gave you my drawing, I can't refer to it. They do have plantings on the south side of the
do.
parking lot that they're putting in.
Yeah, there is.
Well, they have plantings on the west side and the south side of the parking lot that they're putting in.
Yeah, it's a little holly
because that's their hedge, the separation between the sidewalk and the parking lot.
And along Broadway, they have Abelia, which is like a smaller deciduous shrub. It'll have little pink flowers, white flowers.
Can you estimate at plant's maturity what these heights are?
Yeah, so the bald cypress, they're the ones that are downtown. So in a streetscape setting, they won't get full growth. They'll be dormant or dwarfed a little bit. But if you go down, like if you look at any of the Project 180, so the bald cypress have more of the triangle form. They look a bit coniferous, but they're not. Their leaves actually drop. So they're pretty dense. And that is what those two
These
are.
that are lining the north side of,
These are just little shrubs, little hollies. They're nothing too significant, really.
I have a question. How long is the parking lot going to be there before you think that some development that you're wanting to put in place is going to occur?
I have no information on that.
Okay.
See, and that is another reason why I really care about this corner being pedestrian oriented. I highly appreciate the project going in. I think it will help that corner. I do. But I do think we can do a little more TLC along 6th Street.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah, so what I'm gonna hear from you is just a more robust streetscape plan for 6th Street?
Yeah, I think so. I think if we strategically say it's important to create a street tree condition on 6th, I think that would be the guidance we're offering. And I think we're saying a continuance could be a valuable tool with this application. You can come back to us in a month and say, here's some new street trees here. Is that general consensus?
Yeah.
And just to confirm, though, are you saying street trees where they're normally located in the right-of-way, which is not part of their project?
I wouldn't say that. I would say
Okay.
there's been an
Appearance
established
of.
at least 3-foot landscape zone that has been established between sidewalk and parking lot, which
Yeah.
looks like a perfect spot for some
Okay.
trees.
Yeah.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, trees are a gift that we get to give to our children. And so if we're trying to engage with the community, this is, I think, another level that is beautiful beyond just the mural.
Would the applicant be susceptible to having some type of revamp of this project with streetscape, or excuse me, with landscaping in this 3 feet portion?
Give me a thumbs up. Sure. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So are you wanting to get specifics today on that, or
That's all. I don't-
do you want to see it again? Do you want staff to work with them? What are you thinking? Because if you're wanting to come back, what I was going to suggest, so they could at least get started, if you don't have an issue with the parking lot itself,
That we could
do
approve with the.
approve everything but the landscaping.
Yeah.
And then the landscaping could come back. That would allow them to go forward with that, since, I mean, it's going to take a time to put that in. And the landscaping goes in at the end of the construction, so that would allow them to work through all of this, talk to all the people they need to talk to make sure.
Agreeable?
So would you all, the planning staff, be approving the landscaping?
Well, that's the other option.
Okay.
If you want to see it back, that's fine. If you want staff to approve it, that's fine, with given,
Yeah.
if we get direction from you.
Yeah, if you want any type of guidelines towards number of trees or any specifics.
And I'm going to come up and get my staff report from you, if that's okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. I don't know if I necessarily can put a number on it. without seeing exactly what's across the street. I think that would be what I would want to try to complement as much, because I think Heartland did a great job in building that streetscape along Sixth Street. And I don't think we necessarily have to match them. I just think we don't want to look, I think we can do better, I guess. So that's where I'm torn on, like, do I want to see this again? Probably. But if the staff understands like what we're wanting, I also would be okay with the staff reviewing it, knowing our intent is to move the streets to 6th Street and maybe even add a couple more.
Is it possible that you could do a minimum of what you'd like to see versus kind of a, actual number that makes sense, just to kind of help staff?
And right now we're showing 2. 3 would be great.
So 3 to 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
What was that again?
Can we try to get somewhere between 3 and 6 trees along 6th Street?
Yeah.
And I know budget's a thing too, so I don't want to like force anything there. But I do think we could get creative with some of our points and shift things around, maybe lose some shrubs to gain the tree, because a tree is 12 points.
Well, the issue with the shrubs is the required barrier.
But they could get a different shrub that has more coverage.
Okay.
They could do a gray owl juniper that has a 5-6 foot spread versus this abelia that's 3, and that's doubling your less plants but doubling your spacing. So there's some creativity there that
Gotcha.
could go in.
Okay.
But that would be my recommendation.
We can accommodate that request, and I appreciate the willingness to approve this today, just because the owner is interested in getting this parking lot ready. They're moving in May? Yeah, soon, so this parking lot's important to them.
Okay.
Do you want to make
Yeah.
that motion?
Yeah, that'd be good. So I'll make a motion to approve the application, and I guess I'll just read this. Based on that, the project complies with the regulation and guidelines of the Downtown Design District Zoning Ordinance as referenced in section C and D of the staff report.
With the condition
With
that-
the condition that the landscape along 6th Street, trees are moved to the 6th Street edge within your planting buffer, with a range of somewhere between 3 to 6 trees in that area.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion by Copeland,
I'll second.
okay.
It
We're
just says
waiting on Prime Gov.
There.
and
There it
goes.
is.
bounced so fast, I couldn't even see what the vote was.
Oh, we just voted.
Okay, there we go, because it was like, they weren't that dark, okay. It wasn't low. Thank you.
Okay.
That was
Motion passes. Okay, thank you guys, appreciate you. Next for individual consideration is DTCA-24-00006 at 420 West Main Street.
Thank you, Laura Griggs again, Planning Department. So this might look familiar to you. A couple of us, well, yes, at least 2 of us, 3 of us in this room go into this building every single day. It's the 420 West Main building. And the issue deals with 2 of the tree wells, although there were 3 mentioned, so it might be a little confusing. And that is only because the next tree well, which they're not proposing to remove, currently is missing a tree because it died, but it will be replaced. So we're really only discussing these 2 tree wells that you see. And their request is to remove this tree, fill in both tree wells with pavers, and not have trees here anymore. They have indicated that there is a lot of this is our delivery area. We gave up the alley, and so we have no loading dock. It's pickup drop-off with people of product when they come through here. I was actually trying to get pictures of people at the curb when I went out, and it's like, dang it, some days there's a lot of vehicles at the curb. So I'm across the street, so this just gives you an idea that in our median, we have trees that have actually, some of them have survived longer than others. These are all from Project 180. There are times of the year it's really gorgeous on our block because of the trees leafing out. So this is standing at the building, looking to the north, and so the two tree wells, the one empty on the left, the one with the tree on the right, those are the two that they're proposing to fill in and not have trees there anymore. And this is looking to the east, this is looking to the east from the western edge of all of this. So you can see that the curb bumps out in front of our building. We have inset parking on either side of the building. So the line of street trees, the two that they want to remove are actually north of the line of the rest of the street trees on the block. And we have other amenities in the streetscape zone. There's some benches, there's some trash cans, there's objects. And so this shows those two locations. We also have some bike racks. And yes, there is a bike there almost every day. That's one of my coworkers, Max's bike right there. And so this is looking to the west, and that is the two. So you can also see what the curb does and how it comes out, and we have the inset parking spaces. So on this block, we have vacant buildings, we have buildings with tenants in it. There are street trees on both sides of the street. This is across. This is the Arts Garage where some of you might have parked today. And you can see even some of those. We have some where trees have died, and some have died repeatedly, and so they keep replacing them, and it just is a reoccurring thing. And I will go back to, let's look at that one right there. And so in the staff report, I gave you some history of the building, which I find fascinating. And I also provided you with the information from the guidelines dealing with streetscape and street trees. They're not regulations, they're guidelines, which is why it's before you. And in the staff report, what I've indicated is that there is a lot of stuff. I forgot to mention, we also have streetlights within the streetscape. And one of the things I thought was very interesting is the fact that Project 180 planted over 2,500 trees downtown, which some of you might have already known that. I did not know that. And Project 180 did a lot to change the face of downtown. And in a lot of cases, if people come in and they're wanting to undo something, and it's like, no, you can't just easily undo it. We really need to consider what you're doing, and how is that changing what the intent of Project 180 was and all the money that was invested in that project, which was a lot of money. So this is a storefront street type in the Downtown Development Framework, or DDF as we refer to that. And it calls for a full amenity zone with landscaping, incorporating trees and landscaping with street furniture, parking meters, and wayfinding. And staff believes that the street trees are an important feature of the streetscape in this area, and there's ample room to accommodate pedestrian needs, loading and delivery functions, and adequate landscaping. If trees must be removed from the current locations, it would be appropriate to identify new locations in the immediate area and install new trees and tree wells. This is what we required the streetcar project to do. There was something around St. Anthony's where they were going to have to remove 1 or 2 street trees, and we're like, you got to replace them, show us where you're going to do that. So we are consistently telling, even on city projects, if you're going to remove them, then you need to show us where you're going to put them back in. So staff is requesting, if the committee decides to approve this request, we would like a condition requiring 2 new street trees with tree wells be provided as agreed to with CPUD staff with us. And it would just be worked out staff to staff, so to speak, on that location. So we've given you 2 choices. One is if you support the application to approve it with the condition that I just stated, that they work with us and give us 2 more tree wells with street trees somewhere downtown. Now, it won't work if we say within that block because it's all filled up with tree wells. And it might not even work 1 block to the west, but somewhere in this area, we're going to find a place to put them. Or if you don't support the application, then you could deny the application. So those are the 2 choices that you would have. And Public Works Department, the director was the applicant, but we do have a representative, Scott Copeland, from the Parks Department, who's extremely familiar with what I've been talking about that is here. So do you have any questions for me before Scott gets up? And
No. No.
I actually do. Are the bike racks staying?
say that again?
The bike racks are going to stay.
Everything else is staying. They're only proposing to take out the, so let me get, where is that view when we were looking like? I think it's the one I really need to see. I'm trying to figure out the best one for you to look. That might be a good one for you to look. And well, we're having a legal swap here, so hang on a minute.
Legal swap. All right.
Hi.
Welcome, Susan.
Thank you.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Great.
I'm going to move to this one so you can hear me. So this shows the whole front of our building from parking place to parking place, which are inset. And you can see that starting at the left, there's like a street sign, then there's 2 bike racks, and then the tree, and that's one of the ones they want to remove. Smack dab in the middle, we have the light post, and then you have another tree well that's currently empty, and then we have the object, which is a photographic image that's there, and yes, they did get approval for that. And then you see a street tree that is remaining on the right. I should have indicated on the left, when you look at that, right behind that car is an empty tree well, but there is a tree that's going to go back in that one as well. So you can see the only thing they're proposing to remove would be the 2 tree wells that are in front of the columns in the center of the building.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Caleb? Okay.
And really, the reason why this is coming to the committee is because of loading, unloading. Oh, yeah. Yes.
Good morning. My name's
Morning.
Scott Copeland. I'm the Natural Resource Manager for the Parks Department, and I'll answer any questions you
Perfect.
have.
Yeah, so just from the city's usage of this building, loading, unloading, deliveries is the reason?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a lot of foot traffic that goes through that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is there any consideration to having a commercial parking space directly to the east or to the west to accommodate for that?
That's a question I can't answer.
Sure.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know about it. There's not a
looked
lot of room
at-
to do a lot of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. And as you can see, I mean, there's not a lot of room for people to walk, outside of those tree wells and everything else that's on there too. So it kind of constricts people from walking a little bit.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And also knowing, as someone who works with realtors and developers, there is a lot of traffic through there, and getting in and out and going into your business center
Yes.
is, to me, your main priority, because
Yes.
that's the whole idea, is to
Yes,
make it as
sir.
convenient as possible. So I'm glad you guys are thinking about how we can go about making that foot traffic more accessible.
And we're more than willing to work with staff on finding some other locations from the other 2 trees. So that's not a problem, I don't think.
Any consideration to shorter, not necessarily like a tree, but instead of some type of shorter landscaping in these wells instead? I'm just trying to think through opening the, walking up into this location, what does that look like? So,
I
any
think that
consideration
would
for-
probably defeat the purpose,
Okay.
because,
Yeah, I do
if
too.
their intent is they want it more open for
Mhm.
people, so they really don't.
Yeah, and it's hard for me to visualize this because we're looking at a day where no one is there, right? So I'm
Yeah,
trying to imagine
I kept
how
running
many.
downstairs trying to catch people out there.
You're right. Yeah, and it's not to say that there isn't people there, but we're literally looking at
It
a
was funny
picture.
because Katie got on one yesterday, and I looked, I went, oh, that's my truck parked there. But that's not me right there. I'm on
Sure.
the other side.
Yeah, here's another street view that
And the
It's a
other
little
thing
more
that you will
active.
notice is there's 3 places on this block where there have been pavers put in the median. They are not legally approved mid-block crossings, but they're where all city staff goes across the street.
Right.
And there's one right in front of our building.
But we also have a utilities department truck parked right in front of this building, right in front of a sign that says no parking at any time.
Well, we have delivery vehicles that are like our vending machine guy. He comes early and they're parked there. Yeah,
It
there's
says
my
no
truck.
parking, but it's a loading, unloading spot.
Yeah,
too.
it's a
There's
loading,
signs for that,
unloading.
too.
I have personally been,
Rich I would say otherwise, wouldn't he?
I have
I
personally
can't do
been
that on
yelled
a-
at.
Yeah, I can't do that on a private development.
When,
can't
when I
say
was
that's a
loading and
commercial
unloading
zone.
from a committee commission training, and we had all this stuff in the back of my truck, and I pulled up to the curb, and we were quickly trying to unload, and this guy came out and just pounced on me. No parking, no parking. I'm like, okay, call me in, we got to get this unloaded. So, you know, I've been there. He didn't really like my response, but I think for the most part, people try and get things unloaded, get people unloaded, and they get out of there.
I mean, I've beat the drum on street trees are important for the last year. I think probably I'll be the most vocal against it. I think we've probably spent $180 million trying to plant 2,200 trees around downtown. Someone probably spent 40 hours setting out the utilities alone just to get that tree in that location based on that bike rack. And I think you've said something interesting, which is, should we be looking at abandoning a parking space and identifying a permanent commercial loading zone and having the right street trees? Because it's like the trees are dying because people are using it in a way that it has not been designed, it sounds like. Or alternately, could we change to walkable grate protection around those trees?
I would say that there was a reference in Project 180 to the tree grates, and I know none of them on our block have them, and it just occurred to me. So there are loading, unloading spaces around the corner on Walker, on the east side, and they are not public spaces, they're loading, unloading, but obviously in a lot of cases, it's half a block away, so it's not necessarily a convenient one. So I would imagine if we ask the powers that be that approve things like that, they would say, no, you don't need one here because we have them around the corner. But that's not our decision to make. Now, as far as why we don't have tree grates on our trees, I don't know the answer to that question. Do you, Scott?
Probably it's cost effective to do the screenings, and it's ADA accessible just like a grate would be. So I assume that's why. It's probably easier to maintain, you not having to go out and cut out the tree grates every couple years for the growing tree.
We're
do
actually
you-
looking at doing more tree grates around downtown though right
Great.
now. But it's, the ones we're looking at, instead of having to cut them out, you just bolt them out, so it's a lot
That's
easier.
nice, that's
Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
Do you know why the trees are dying right there?
I don't know, I know that one tree has been replaced twice already, that's
Okay,
what I do
so
know.
it's probably a drainage thing?
And that's, could be, you could
Yeah.
go down a whole.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I like the tree there. I lean towards keeping it too. I do question, there's like a new monument in the same area blocking pedestrian walkway. That's new, that thing. Now it is pushed back a little
Yeah,
bit
it's like-
farther,
That one
but
looks like it's in line with the,
it's not necessarily
It
like,
could not be south on the sidewalk itself because our building comes out under the sidewalk.
right.
And so because of how it's fastened, it had to stop there. It couldn't be located closer. So that's why I basically told them exactly where they could put it based on where the tree wells were and other things.
yeah.
My concern is setting a precedent for the city of Oklahoma City in this body to then see this repeat from another business, to be honest. If we say we're allowing the city of Oklahoma City to move trees or remove these two and then move them to another space, what would prevent a private entity to ask for the same in the downtown design, in our purview? And so I'm, to be honest, just a little hesitant to do that for that reason. I would love to, like where this full truck is. I mean, I understand this, the burgundy truck. I would love for that to be a commercial loading, unloading space exclusively, especially since it's one parking space. I think that that's a pretty good space for, and I don't know if Public Works is, or excuse me, who's the body that kind of oversees this?
The Traffic and Transportation Commission, but it's through staff of the Public Works
Yeah.
Department.
If we can make a recommendation for that to happen, I would love to, I would love for this body to potentially do that instead. I would love to pursue that avenue first, if I'm being honest.
There is a tree well there too.
There's actually two.
Yeah,
So there's one in front of it, and then there's an empty one right at the edge. And so
they would.
the one has a tree in it, and
Yeah.
the one in the back end of it does not have a tree. That one will be replaced. So what I'm concerned about is we could end up with shifting what the issue is down the street if you land on a solution, but we really don't have all the answers for you
No.
at this point, if that's where you're headed, because we don't control that.
So if we're also looking at this for like loading dock purposes, that's probably the largest. I'm thinking about the biggest thing that would need to go through this space, because pedestrians, I used to work here, and I didn't really have a problem going in between the two trees. There's no ramp there right now, so would a ramp eventually go in, or like what, do you have any, we just want the trees removed, so when the dock comes, does the dock sit on the curb, and you just roll
There-
straight to the,
For the most part, when they unload, they unload them out in, things get unloaded out in the street.
okay, and then they hop the curb?
So
Yeah,
either
they
they're
hop the curb
walking
off.
So it's
north
still,
or
there's
east.
like this permanent barrier there anyways, that we're already working around. I don't know.
And I don't know if they can do a curb cut. I don't, that's a Public Works question. I don't
That's
know.
also,
I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah.
there might be a long list of questions we have to ask other departments before we
Yeah.
have answers for you.
Yeah, I think we keep the tree until those are answered. That's what I am at. Because I can't answer this, and we can say we're opening it up for a loading dock and more pedestrian room. This is one of the most ample pedestrian rooms in this street, actually. I don't feel like we need more pedestrian space necessarily here. I think it's kind of for the ease of loading is more of what it is. And I feel like removing the tree doesn't necessarily help that right now. That's where I'm at with
As in
that.
like it's,
It's 4 inches max in size.
sure.
So, of course, the branches come out. There's a height there, but the branches seem to be taller than the sign, or right at the sign height. So,
I just don't feel confident that we have exhausted all options to keep the
Yeah.
trees and the strategy and the investment in Oklahoma
Yeah.
City. And I agree with Justin, which is, I feel icky letting the city do this when on one hand, 30 minutes ago, I demanded a private investor to
Yeah.
plant more street trees, and then I let the city
yeah.
take them away. So I would consider asking this to be continued.
So I have heard one of the items you want us to provide information on is making, I call that the single east parking space a loading space, because that is the only single parking space on the block. Behind it, I think there's 4, and east of it, there's 3. And there is no single parking other than the handicap parking on the other side of the street. So that's one thing you asked. And then was there a question about putting a ramp in?
Yeah, if the whole concern is for a dock, I feel like it only makes sense to have a ramp, or else you are fighting with a 6-inch curb every time you're unloading and fighting with that. I mean, if you're gonna do it, you might as well do it right, I guess.
Yeah, essentially it's just not solving the whole
It's not
issue.
solving it, it's just, getting it maybe halfway out of the street, because most of the time it's gonna be a big truck, probably.
Well, that's the other
Big
thing I was gonna
semi, like,
say,
it's not gonna fit.
that parking space will accommodate.
Yeah,
So yes, that's my truck. So that's a,
yeah.
a regular four-door pickup truck.
Yep.
And it would accommodate, it could be a long bed. You could, definitely would accommodate a dually, but a semi-truck, I don't even know if our vending guy could get his van in there. Well, it's a
That's
big
it seems,
van thing.
Also better than being in the street and
So-
blocking traffic.
That's what they
If
do.
you're partially,
Yeah, currently, that's what they do, as well as we have people, because they see the street sign that says 2-hour parking,
Yeah.
and it's at the curb, we have people that actually park at the curb and block a lane of traffic and argue with you and say, but the sign tells me I can park here for 2 hours. They do that in front of that single parking space. A lot of stuff goes on our street, so.
there's more space, actually, if you go, what is that, west? In front of Coney Island and the abandoned buildings, there's a series of parking right there.
Yes, but I truthfully, I would hate to mess with another tenant's parking spaces in front of their buildings or street trees in front of their buildings, because if you're talking about making one of those spaces a delivery space, because they have a lot of their customers that, well, they'll double park and run in there and then come back out, so.
I guess I was just pointing out where there's more space.
Yes.
Because I don't think a single is actually gonna cover it. Because all I've ever seen, like I've seen Scott himself out there pulling stuff out of a semi. Like they're working hard right there, and I get the need for like wanting more space, but I just don't think removing the street tree solves it.
Yes, we've never had a loading dock for our building, to the best of my knowledge. When I came, the alley was still open, and then we had a parking lot across the alley from our building. But all of that, including the alley, is now part of the 499 project, so we don't own or have access to any of it.
Yeah.
So if I could, as someone who works a lot with entities that utilize the business center for the work, I get the point about trying to maintain the standards and the guidelines. I also agree that there probably needs a more robust proposal, and honestly, trying to clear that all out and reset it so that it can be user-friendly, because again, I know the city is trying to make that consumer space more engaging and more convenient for developers, business owners, and others that have worked with the city as far as permits and zonings getting in and out. And I do know that sometimes it is unloading plans and other materials that have to be shifted. And yes, they illegally park there in order to make that happen. But my hope is that maybe the city will take a more robust look of how to utilize that space in order to fit with the concept of making it a place where people are able to easily access in and out.
Okay.
okay. Any other thoughts, comments? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You want to make a motion for a continuance?
That's what I was wondering, is this a continuance or is this what's it?
Do you,
Different.
essentially, you're asking for more detail in this space and for the city to iron out some items. Any specific items that we want them to kind of come back to committee with?
Okay.
Yeah, it would be very helpful for what additional information, especially if it involves other departments, because if it involves our departments, we might be able to answer it but they don't. And I have my calendar up because the easiest way would be just to continue it to a date certain. Keep in mind that for your next month's meeting, I need everything by next Tuesday.
Sure, so you need to continue it to,
Now, I don't know what the timing, okay, good. So whatever, it's,
It'd be
May.
that would be May 16th.
May 16th?
And hopefully that gives us plenty of time to be able to reach out to powers that be and ask them those questions that you are telling us. The only one I have written down is about that single parking space, making it a loading space.
You know, the requirements for that to be loading space, is it big enough? Is it feasible to change curb cut to allow that?
I wrote down tree grates, using various areas along the street for loading, unloading, whether or not there's been consideration of installing a ramp, if the purpose is to better facilitate loading and unloading, and then just generally looking at other ways to make that whole space more functional beyond just removal of trees.
Yeah, I would even consider if there's any type of, do we need to mark that space specifically in front of the building with some type of, if cost is a concern, do we need to then look at some type of painting of the street to allow for commercial, just knowing that this is going to be more of a urban environment that we need, that pedestrians and drivers need to be conscious of. Would love to be creative in front of, and I would love to see the city be creative in front of the space that they occupy.
And there's also, I heard there's dedicated commercial loading zones on the north-south street that's to the west.
Oh, no, well, they're on the east side of Walker, around the corner.
Yeah.
So it's south of Main Street.
And I guess what I'm trying to say is, if those were originally intended to be for Coney Island or for offloading for the city, maybe there's a parking space land swap deal to be had to say, let's put the commercial spots in front of 420, and let's put the parking spaces back where the commercial loading zones potentially could be. I think some creative solutions are
Yeah, so it's
available.
actually where those 3 vehicles are parked. There's signs out there, if I'm not mistaken, that says commercial loading zone only, or loading zone, or whatever. And I think sometimes that's where the contractors that are working in our building end up parking down there. Yeah.
Yeah, if that tree's in full bloom, I wonder if you even see that sign. Anyway,
The tree will get taller.
yeah.
So
that helpful?
our recommendation would be to continue.
Till
Can I
the
go-
May
I'll
16th.
Give it a shot, okay. So I would recommend, or we recommend, whatever it is, that this case is continued to the May 16th meeting.
With,
How's that?
And
with following guidelines
right.
regarding.
Oh, actually, I think you could probably reference it to allow staff time to come back with
Sure.
information as discussed or something
Yeah.
like that.
perfect.
To allow staff to come back to us and report back on the findings of the discussions from today.
Okay, motion by Copeland,
I'll second.
second Smid. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Oh, sorry. That was a yes. It's 5. 5 noted on here if I pass.
There it goes.
Okay, perfect. A little slow loading. Okay, perfect. Next, our agenda, item 7, other business. There are none. Item 8, communications. Is there anything that we need to be aware of as far as these items?
Well, what I will tell you is I have, the new sign code went into effect Friday, so I've now been able to approve 2 applications in DTD1, which previously only allowed 1 sign per tenant. So I've been able to approve the second sign for a tenant. People have been waiting for that one. One of them on here was for the old Holiday Inn. You all had approved second floor up, and they came back through for the first floor in the site, which I was able to do administratively, and so that's on here because they're going to have a swimming pool and a little bitty dog area for their tenants within that back area that has the wall around it. And so that's on here as well. Let's see, what else was? And another one actually is for signage for the building that came in for the parking lot, because they're working on getting that. Now, what I will tell you is you're going to get a very early quorum call next week about your next month's meeting, because we're going to have 2 or 3 ordinance amendments on that. And so if we don't have quorum, we're going to need to schedule a special meeting, because those involve, some of them involve multiple design districts, and we really need to get through that process onto Planning Commission, onto City Council. So you're going to see one earlier rather than later.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments from committee members? Okay. Our next regular meeting is Thursday, April 18th, 2024. New applications were to be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. on Tuesday, March 19th. Revisions and information on continued projects to be submitted by March 26, 2024. And if that's it, we are adjourned.
Thank you.